The first question that just picked up is who named the time, or the zodiacal time, Pisces? The answer is Enki. As Nibiru approaches the sun, it should become visible to the naked eye as only as a bright point of light. That is correct. How many years out of the 3600 would Nibiru be visible from Earth? The observations reported in Assyria and Babylon for the previous time, or last time it was here, started between a century to 2 centuries before its perigee. The story of Enki that I translated from tablets. Where are those tablets now? Oh, they are all over various museums in England, at the Louvre, in Germany. Many are in Philadelphia, by the way. So they are all over. The sources for the book, Lost Book of Enki, were about 800 different texts and fragments and etc. In recent years, other Pluto-sized bodies have been discovered beyond the orbit of Pluto. Why didn't the Anunnaki tell the Sumerians about these bodies as well? I don't know. With such an extreme orbit, why isn't Nibiru a frozen planet, unable to sustain life? Well, that's really a very important question, because it keeps being asked. And the answer can begin with saying, why aren't we on Earth frozen? If we go up, not just in a plane, but certainly in an orbiting spacecraft, just a few miles above the surface of the Earth, we'll be frozen to death. So why aren't we frozen to death on the planet here? Because of our atmosphere. It's the atmosphere that keeps the heat. Now, most planets, and there are many studies, including very recent ones in the journal Science and Nature, about Jupiter. Jupiter, as an example, not only has internal heat from radioactive and other elements in the planet, but actually emits more heat out into space than it ever receives from the sun. So if a planet has its own natural internal heat, as virtually all the planets have, the question is, does it have an atmosphere? If it doesn't have an atmosphere, life would not be possible. Everything would freeze. If it has an atmosphere, it creates like a hothouse effect, and this was really the reason why the Anunnaki came here, because they were losing their atmosphere, and without finding a way, which was with gold, to protect it, life would end on their planet. So this is a key question, and although I've given the answer in my books and at every possible occasion and meeting, etc., it's kept being asked, but it gives me an opportunity to give the reason and the explanation. Well, it's another question more or less in the same vein. In Israel's
history, how long did the women continue crying for Tammuz, the moon?
Well, it's not something I talked about today, but the question is, how long did the women in Israel, ancient Israel, cry for Tammuz, which was the name for the Sumerian god Dumuzi, who was killed, or his death was caused by his older half-brother Marduk. And it's a very interesting story because it was supposed the two clans tried to make peace by intermarriage, and the goddess Inanna, better known as Ishtar, was betrothed to Dumuzi, a son of Enki. I don't know for how long, but certainly the reference in the Bible is at the time of the prophet Jeremiah. So this is 6th or so century BC. After all the information you discover, do you believe in God? Well, if you can define God, I could answer that. It's a good question, but it's very complex to answer unless the question is developed. Is it just a history book? Religion?
Yeah, he wants the topic.
Or is religion just a history book lesson? Or is there any merit to any of them, to all religions? Well, religion in the narrow sense began, like so many other things, in Sumer, which was the worship of the Anunnaki, gods with a small g. And then it diversified to national gods and to clans, those who followed Marduk, those who followed Sin, those who followed Enki. They were given Egyptian names. They let people do the Americas. They were called Quetzalcoatl. So religion, I think, can be separated at least into two parts, probably into more. One is the one of ritual. You do this, you don't eat that, etc., which just developed over the ages and doesn't really, is not basic to faith. And the other is faith, in believing that there is some higher entity, and this leads to the question of God. I do believe that there is a universal creator. If any religion teaches that, then it's a valid religion. Phobos appears artificial. Your comments on our moon. Oh, I should give comments on our moon. Is our moon artificial? No, our moon is not artificial. There's a whole part of the epic of creation. I skipped over it, but how the moon came to the celestial entity called in the text Kingu, how it became our moon. So it's not artificial. What do you think Anunnaki plans are for us on their return? Well, it depends who the leader now is, because the attitudes were different at the time of one of its nearing, when the great flood or deluge occurred. Enlil wanted to use the opportunity to wipe mankind off the face of the earth. Enki, who treated mankind more like his creations, because he and the goddess Ninhursag were involved in the genetic engineering, treated us more as, not us, but humans, as his creatures, his responsibility. So it all depends who is coming back now. If we go back to the events of the deluge, in the Bible, the reason is given that Yahweh, the biblical God, who was Yahweh, is another subject. I do have in my book, I think, Divine Encounters, a whole chapter about, it's titled God the Extraterrestrial. And if it strikes you as odd, then by definition, if he's not one of us, then he's an extraterrestrial. So the Bible says that Yahweh, the antagonistic deity, which in the Sumerian text is Enlil, said mankind turned out to be evil, and therefore it should be wiped out of the face of the earth. And if the Anunnaki come back, whoever they are, will they find evil upon the earth? And no doubt they will. So if these are the Enlilites who are coming back, they'll say, how about repeating the deluge? In the Akkadian text, the Babylonian version, the reason was that there were too many. Not they were evil, but these creatures, the children of the Adam, there are too many of them. They fill up the earth. They are in our way, you know. They don't give us peace. So are there too many of us on earth? Maybe. So I don't know. I think the best way to find out is to be around when they come back. Are you training others to read the tablets? No, I have no time for that, but one can learn. It's not impossible. We have another half hour. Do you know from the interpretation of the tablets if Earth is the only planet they visited to mine for gold? Well, they definitely visited Mars, but if the question is limited to mining for gold, there's no text that I know of that says so. So we might be the only golden planet. Has anyone tested the black residue seen on the walls of the inside of the space platform? Well, some of the walls are blackened, but I don't know of anyone testing it. Maybe one should go back and do it. Yeah. When Enki was living on Earth, did he experience Nibiru's crossing? Many times. Do you feel that what's going on in Iraq is influenced by the knowledge of the eventual return of the Anunnaki? Well, there's a question full of landmines, and I'll risk it by saying yes. Why do you think NASA and our government, I thought that NASA is part of our government, is so afraid to admit the truth about Mars? Well, that's a question in general. I have not shown today, I think. I showed it yesterday, the VA-243. I showed it today? No, yesterday. Well, there is a cylinder seal in the Museum of the Ancient Near East in Berlin that depicts, it's called a mythological scene because it shows the god of agriculture granting the plow to mankind at the beginning of agriculture. And as often happens on other cylinder seals, the background is decorated with celestial images. And on that particular seal, catalogued as VA-243, there is a depiction of a solar system with a sun, a star in the center, surrounded by planets. And when I compared it to what we know about our solar system, it shows exactly our solar system up to and including Pluto, referring to a previous question, in the correct order, the correct sizes, etc., plus one more planet, which is the Nibiru that comes and goes. So I obtained from the museum a photograph with permission to print it, and wrote about it in the 12th Planet and some subsequent books as well. That this is our solar system. In the course of the years, astronomers, members of the establishment, were shown by people like you this particular part of my book in the cylinder seal, and it's in the museum, and it's known where it was found, and it's known that it's from around 2500 BC, almost 4,500 years ago, and astronomers were asked, so what is it? One case, which is not the part I wanted to tell you, well, I'll tell you that part too, but one instance was, and I get a fax about it, one astronomer, a well-known astronomer, a respected astronomer, who was shown that, says, well, this is definitely a depiction of a solar system, a star, a sun surrounded by planets. But there's no way that the Sumerians, as Sitchin claims, 4,500 years ago could depict it, that they knew it. So what is it? So therefore, it must be of a depiction of another solar system. And I get the fax with this answer by this astronomer. And I took the fax and wrote on the margin, wow, wow, wow. Does he realize what he just said? He said there's no way the Sumerians could be familiar with our solar system. But they were aware of and could depict another solar system which may or may not exist somewhere. So when this was shown to him, he realized that he said a stupid thing, and he eventually wrote a book and devoted a relatively nice chapter to me. But that was in the book published in '76. And then a couple of years ago at the most, maybe a year and a half ago, one of my dear friends, I think she's in the audience. Joanne, are you there? Okay. Sends me pages from a very respected, or the most respected, astronomy magazine in the United States, with an article, and the picture of the cover of the 12th planet is right there as part of the article. You know, we now have posters duplicating that original cover. And the article is written by one of the leading astronomers in the United States, in this city, in Los Angeles. And he explains pretty fairly what I say. I say that this is a depiction of the sun and the missing planet is Nibiru. It's fair. But he says, since all this is really impossible, so how about a different understanding that the central figure that I say is the sun, what looks like a star, that maybe it's the planet Jupiter. And Jupiter is surrounded by a number of moons, so maybe this is Jupiter surrounded by this. And the way it is laid out, he said, this is a depiction of Jupiter passing through the teapot of Sagittarius. The constellation Sagittarius, which, is depicted like others, with lines drawn, which is not really the way it's in the skies, but that's how it was envisioned. So there's part that if you connect the planets, the dots this way, then the British astronomers, maybe while having 5 o'clock tea, called it the teapot. And they said, so this is Jupiter, he says in a 3 or 4 page article, passing through the teapot of Sagittarius, and therefore what Sitchin says, that this is the sun and our solar, doesn't have to be the way he says it. And I get this, I read it, I say, maybe I'm wrong. And the next day, I wake up and I say, there's something wrong with what this guy says. Jupiter passing through the teapot of Sagittarius. Now Sagittarius, as I've learned, because I had to learn some astronomy for writing these books, Sagittarius is more to the south of the ecliptic, in the plane, the line through which the planets move. And some of the planets, they diverge a little. Jupiter moves almost precisely along the ecliptic. I go to my astronomy books, of course. Jupiter never moves south enough to touch Sagittarius. But maybe I'm wrong. So I wrote 2 letters, one to astronomical people in New York and one in Chicago. And I didn't say why I'm asking, but I said, is it possible for Jupiter to pass through the teapot of Sagittarius? And I got back letters, very nicely responded, saying absolutely no, never, never, never. With these 2 letters, I write to the magazine, Sky and Telescope. And I say, reference this and this astronomer is wrong, and I would like you to print a correction. Nothing. Not until I threatened some legal action did I hear back, not from the magazine, they never published the correction, but from this astronomer. I get a 2-page letter that says, Dear Zecharia, I've been admiring your writings, from the day you were born. Blah, 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 blah. Now, as to the point you make, maybe I was too hasty in saying it's Jupiter. But still, I don't agree with your interpretation of the cylinder sea. So I wrote back to him and said, you don't have to agree with me on this, but I would really like to understand what is the problem that astronomers or other establishment scientists have with accepting the truth of this Sumerian information. What is the problem? Is it a religious problem? You have religious problems. Is it an academic? Is it a scientific? I just want to understand, and this is in answer, the short answer to the question. I never get an answer. Nobody of those who say, nobody ever explains why. Some of them, the so-called Assyriologists, because I used to attend some of the meetings of various societies of which I am a member until I stopped, come to me and say, of course you are right, but I cannot say so. So, is it that they are afraid for their academic standing? Are they afraid to be made the laughingstock of their colleagues? I don't know. The answer is, I don't know. It does not make sense to me. And when it will end, when this attitude will end, I don't know. I really think that the mass of people who do accept the real truth will force the establishment to change its position. Why don't you read for a change?
How are the giant 900 and 1,100 pound slabs measured by humans to weigh that much if no piece of equipment can lift them?
Well, the weight is of course estimated because nobody actually took those colossal stone blocks and put them on some scale. But if you know what stone they are made of, which is easy to verify, and you measure the size, the cube, and multiply the cube by a weight, you get the total weight. There's no dispute about these weights. Nobody says, no, it weighs not 1,100, but whatever.
In Revelations, it says that Armageddon is a place, not an occurrence. Please explain what place and where and why is Armageddon today thought of as an ending instead of a place?
Well, Armageddon is a place coming from the Hebrew Har Megiddo, the Mount of Megiddo, which is just a promontory near Haifa, and the site of many wars in antiquities, because it's very strategic. And where I just said, just east of Haifa. Why is Armageddon today thought of as an ending? Because I assume so. The notion is that this is where the final conflict would take place. The prophet Ezekiel referred it as the final war of Gog and Magog. The Dead Sea Scrolls speak of the final war between the powers of light and the powers of darkness. So it's become a concept rather than only a place.
If it is true that the Mars pyramids are built right by the Mars equator, is that a coincidence that Phobos flies by just by them?
Well, the questions come from books by others, not by me. So I'm not qualified to answer that. Somebody from state of grace. Is there such a country?
Not that I've heard of.
What is the basis for the theory of suspending gold in the atmosphere of Nibiru? Well, this is based on what happened on Nibiru and the explanation that I reached, why they came here and how they mined the gold and how they needed workers for the gold mines and created us. So this whole thing is an integral part of the tale. So if you understand how it started, what the problem was, what they did here, what they achieved, where they failed, etc. This is the basis for the theory, as you call it.
In the span of 3,600 years since they were last here, isn't it possible that things, life on their planet could have seriously deteriorated such that even when their planet returns, no one will come from it?
Well, it's possible, but this raises the question of how to explain what's going on this moonlet Phobos. Well, it says here, do you feel that the unrest in the Middle East today has anything to do or related to the return of Nibiru? Now, I spoke yesterday, I spoke today, and I'm saying that the expected return is not of Nibiru, it's of the Anunnaki. So, next opportunity, Marty has, rephrase your question and I'll answer it.
Are some of us Anunnaki from the past? I feel like I have memory of being an Anunnaki.
Well, this goes to it's a very valid question, not to be sneezed at. And this goes to the issue of demigods. And in chapter 6 of Genesis, which was what started me on the subject, there's that the sons of the gods, plural, of Elohim, plural, married the daughters of men and had children by them. So Gilgamesh, for example, who thought that he is entitled to become immortal, which means living the same longevity as the Anunnaki, was described as 2/3, not just half, not a demigod, but as 2/3 divine, let's use the term, because in that case his mother, not his father, but his mother was a goddess. Now Gilgamesh had a son. It's mentioned in the Epic of Gilgamesh and other texts. Those demigods born to this intermarriage described in the Bible between the sons of the Elohim and the daughters of men had also offspring. So do some of us carry to some extent their genes? Of course, because that's how they brought us about to begin with, through genetic engineering, mixing some of their genes with those of hominids, Homo erectus or whatever, then through intermarriage. And if the questioner says that he or she feel like she has a memory of being an Anunnaki, maybe. Why not?
The stone tablets stolen from the basement at the museum in Baghdad. Do you know anything about them, and if they talked about Nibiru?
Well, not only tablets, but actual sculptures, which are more admired than the tablets, were stolen. Many were returned, many were found, and are back in the museum. There's a whole debate now whether to reopen the museum to the public or not, whether any of those particular tablets deal with Nibiru. I don't know. Can more detailed questions be submitted to your P.O. Box? Yes, it's P.O. Box 577, New York, New York, 10185. It's on my website. I answer all my mail. What's the question?
Why did the Anunnaki betwixt the humans' language and separate the humans' tribe to different corners of the earth?
Well, this matter of confusing the languages and dispersing mankind, which is in the Bible, appears in the Sumerian tablets too. I didn't come across any valid reason. There was some concern among the gods, especially by Enlil, that if mankind continues to be united by a language, it's not good for them, for the Anunnaki. There's no clear answer. I don't know. Now read the question.
What is so special about Arizona?
I don't know. Nice place. Well, there's a book about some theory by some writer called Neil Adams, which I'm not qualified to answer. Do the Anunnaki still communicate with us in dreams? I think so.
Could you comment on the current advancement of technology and if there is a relationship to the Anunnaki and or so-called technocrats? Specifically, will or do the Anunnaki bring advanced technology to Earth when they visit?
Bring what to Earth?
Advanced technology.
I really don't know. But I think the concern is will they come to destroy us? Never mind advanced technology. Did Enki leave an emergency preparedness plan or instructions to survive Nibiru's crossing? Well, before Enki left, and I wouldn't expand on the living aspect. Before he left, he, with the blessing of Enlil, did choose someone to keep their legacy while they are gone and until they return. And that's enough for the moment.
A multiple-part question. Why are you and your books and your amazing and indispensable research not required study in all major universities today? And
the answer is not up to me, but why don't you, each one of you, write to their local university and ask the question? I get letters from fans that enclose some clipping from their local newspaper or some magazine and say, this item, this discovery, this thing is exactly what you said in your book, this and this. And I write them back and say, it's nice to know that, but why don't you tell it in a letter to the editor of the newspaper? Why do you tell me that I'm right? Tell it to the newspaper and its readers, and I encourage you to do that. Let's read this.
The new picture of Phobos with the blue area, doesn't it look like a picture of Enki? Some like that, the Nazca lines in Peru. I see a face.
No. I don't know. I didn't see a face. But it's definitely metallic. How did you learn to read or decipher the clay tablets? I devoted a lifetime to it. So there are some, by now there are courses. When I started, Sumerian was not a major or recognized separate subject. And I took some courses at various universities. I taught myself. I pored over books, I pored over tablets. There are various manuals. I think some of them are now on the internet. I think if somebody wants to do it, it's easier than when I started. Why did they leave Earth? Are they still here? Well, we keep asking the same questions. I think somebody said here, read the Lost Book of Enki, read The End of Days. Why are they keeping information from us, of the government? Well, we discussed that. Where does Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah, Yeshua is Hebrew for Jesus, fits into the return of the Anunnaki? I deal with that in in the end of days. Which ancient languages do you recommend to study for more understanding? I would recommend to start with Hebrew. Something about the Vedic text. I did not talk about it today. Again, something I did not talk about. I heard, anonymous, I heard there are space stations on the dark side of the moon. Do you think there is? Well, there's no question of thinking. I mean, are there or aren't there? I don't know. Could there be? The answer is yes. Are there? I don't know. Would you describe what the Anunnaki individuals looked like? Well, first of all, my books are filled with their images, so it's easy to see how they looked. But if sometimes the question is phrased differently and says, I'm asked, do they look like us? And I say, no, we look like them. Yes? There's the question.
I think she's talking about the Pisces.
Well, it's one or two more because we are past our deadline. What inspired you to dedicate your life to this? Well, it's a long story. I asked the question as a schoolboy, but
The rest of
one more.
To yourself.
Just any one more. The same?
No, it just doesn't pertain to yourself.
It's a question about another book.
Yeah.
That's too personal. Well, somebody says here, as I recall, your evidence indicates the last crossing around 400 BC. Do you therefore anticipate the next crossing around 1200 years from now? And there's some calculation here, where if the last was not 400 by 565 BC, then, well, the orbit got shorter. I also deal with that in the end of days. The orbit is now maybe 50 years, not 3600. So you deduct this from that, is what, around 2900. Well, if you live like Methuselah, you'll make it. Well, thank you all.